Shabbat UK, here we come. We're no longer talking about counting down the days, we're talking about counting down the hours. So far in these divrei halacha, we've addressed topics associated with the mitzvah of Shabbat candles and the mitzvah of kiddush. And today I want to speak about the mitzvah of Lechem Mishneh, the 2 Shabbat loaves. The 2 challot were instituted to remind us of the double portion of manna that fell in the desert on a Friday. And it's proper to say hamotzi over Lechem Mishneh at all 3 Shabbat meals. We cover them with a cloth, and the Torah presents 2 reasons for this. The first reason, which is cited in the name of the Yerushalmi, is shelo yireh hapat boshto, so that the bread shouldn't become embarrassed. What this really means is that normally the bracha on bread is considered more important than the bracha on wine, and should be recited first. On Shabbat, we switch the order, but we hide the bread so that it's not visible when we say the bracha on the wine. The second reason is so that it should resemble how the manna fell in the desert, covered on top by a layer of dew. There are several nafkaminas between these 2 explanations. Number 1, kiddush is not recited at Suda Shlishit, so according to the first reason, there is no need to cover the challot at that meal. Whereas according to the second reason, it would still be correct to cover them. Number 2, conversely, if a person is making kiddush in the morning and just eating some cake or crackers rather than having a full meal, according to the first reason, it would be correct to cover the mezonot when saying the bracha over the wine, whereas according to the second reason, it would be unnecessary. And number 3, if the reason to cover the challot is because of the order of the brachot, then it's okay to remove the cover immediately after kiddush. Whereas, if the reason is because of the dew that covered the manna, it might be correct for them to remain covered until hamotzi has been recited. The person making hamotzi should hold the 2 challot in their hands whilst reciting the bracha, and they should lift the loaves when they say Hashem's name. According to the Shulchan Aruch, the minhag is to cut the lower loaf on Friday night, and to cut the upper loaf at other Shabbat meals. However, the Rashba and the Vilna Gaon maintained that both loaves should be cut at each meal. What should a person do if they don't have 2 loaves? In such a case, they can use 2 half loaves, or even 2 slices of bread. Rav Neuvert in Sefer Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata wonders about a person who has only 1 loaf of bread and it's unsliced. Is it better to leave it unsliced so as to be able to say a bracha over a whole loaf? Or is it better to cut it into 2 so that it will represent the double portion of manna? Though he leaves the question unresolved, he indicates that it might well be preferable to cut the loaf into 2, since the din of Lechem Mishneh is based on a pasuk, whereas the preference to say a bracha over a whole loaf is only hidur mitzvah, an enhancement of the mitzvah. Sometimes a person wants to use a frozen challah as the second loaf, and this is generally regarded as permissible. However, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was hesitant to permit it if the bread is really so hard as to be inedible, unless the meal is expected to last long enough that the loaf could in theory defrost, if not return to the freezer. Have a wonderful weekend, and Shabbat UK, Shalom!